Will, do you know why I'm the greatest org player alive? Because I totally bluffed the shit out of you.
Hey, Will.
Hey, Jack. You got a look on your face.
What do you mean I got a look on my face?
I feel like you were really excited for this episode in particular of the StockWatch.
Why? Why would I be excited?
I think there were I think the auction, we get to talk about the auction, blast from the past. A pretty eventful tribal council. I couldn't see the last bit of the episode, by the way. I don't know what happened. I'm assuming what happened was there was a split vote. Jay got sent home, and Kelly's still in the game, right? Am I correct on this? Jack, can you confirm?
I don't know. I just think it's funny. I just think it's funny that your highest placing draft pick was 10th, and the other two players were quitters.
Yeah.
So
you know what's funny though?
What's funny about that, Will?
I wasn't the first one eliminated from the draft. I think Phil lost all of his players before me, which is hilarious, by the way.
You ended with a 65. I think Phil ended in the 100s.
Yeah, no, he got more points, but I'm just saying, like, I think what's really cruel is that Kelly, for a while, we can swap over to the Kelly retrospective, because I think a lot of our conversations are going to be about Kelly.
No, hold on. We'll stay here. We haven't formally introduced ourselves.
Okay, that's fair. I think Kelly, for a while, was getting a good edit, and so Survivor teased me. They were like, hey, Will, we know you kind of, got 2 duds, but here's Kelly, she's been kind of the voice of reason. A lot of the things I said I thought Sean would be on Lulu back in episode 1, episode 2, turned out to be Kelly with Bello. I think the problem is, and, shout out to Jay, he's normally around. Oh, there we go. Jay was very correct about Kelly going really earlier than I think we both expected. But that's besides that. I think the episode was still legitimately phenomenal. The auction, I honestly liked every single part about the auction. What about you? Did you like the auction? It's back. The bit's done, by the way, Jack. You can talk now. It's like
TLDR. Will sucks at drafting players.
No.
Welcome everyone to Survivor StockWatch.
Were you there for Big Brother?
Yeah.
I caught Jag winning week 1.
All right. Hey, this is a Survivor show. Let's keep it Survivor. Welcome everyone to Survivor StockWatch episode 8 with me, as always, with Will, as always. Will, how are you this fine day?
Pretty good. I got paid today, so I'm about to buy some buffs and nothing else.
He's about to buy some buffs. Well, that's good. Yeah, now we can talk about the episode because now we formally introduced ourselves.
Oh.
Best episode of the season?
Maybe. I still am really high on episode 2, but I think for different reasons. I think this was the better episode, but the way they treated that second episode of where everyone got screen time, great tribal council, I think that is the gold standard for early game. I think this episode is high up there. I try to keep in count for recency bias, so I try not to, call Caleb the best Survivor player or this season the best season of Survivor. But I do think this was a phenomenal episode. I think in every possible way. The auction, the foreshadowing during the auction, which we'll get to later. I think this was, and the challenge was kind of a classic, just a normal hold the rope and a cool showdown. Yep.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I personally think this is the best episode of the season because it embodies everything Survivor should be now, right? It's a lot of the old stuff, the auction coming back, a classic challenge, a good old-fashioned blindside.
Yeah.
That's always, old school material. But it's a new era spin on it. And, I've come to the point in my understanding, in my relationship with the new era. I know. Bad X. Where to this point, the stuff that they are doing, I'm okay with. As long as we get this quality, especially from 90 minutes, which will be happening next season.
Woo!
More time for Survivor. Always a good thing. Always a treat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to piggy off of Jay's point here that this season as a whole, even with 2 quitters, best season in the new era so far. Yeah, I agree. I'm sure I understand people who hesitate, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I understand people who hesitate and say, not yet. If this season continues to be good down the stretch, it will be the best new era season, without a doubt. Right now, people could still argue that they're like 42 the best. I have seen a massive cult following for 43. That has gained a lot of steam as of recent. However, I do think 45 will, at this point already, will be in the top 20 of Survivor seasons. I'm going to say it.
Yeah, I can say that. So I think my favorite new era season is still 44. I think that had everything I liked. I think Carolyn is my favorite new era character. And just watching the Tika 3, even though the gameplay wasn't as amazing, I think the narrative and the storyline, that's kind of where I get some of my enjoyment with Survivor. Not always. So like seasons like that and then Cook Islands, tend to rank highly for me. But I will say that so far what we have been getting have been amazing. Again, it's recency bias. I'm hoping that the reason why Probst isn't that high on the season, allegedly, is from the 2 quitters. A lot of smaller moments that I think are really making the season come alive too. Moments where I feel like we don't really get a lot of those small BS, what the heck kind of moments before, like with Stick Bug and how that might be an editing thing. We got D's toes for whatever reason. And in this episode, we got the good old rice negotiation. Where Jeff Probst just takes a knife, slaughters a bag, and watching the panic on everyone's faces. It's so just charming. It's so fun. And this is kind of just like, we just need more of this.
It's the return of the classics. We saw more sassy Jeff this episode than we have all new era. We saw him stab a bag of rice. We saw him turn down negotiations at the auction. We saw him get all hot and bothered with players at Tribal. He's coming into form a little bit. And, we've all been hoping for that instead of sappy Jeff. I'm sure we'll get some more sappy Jeff later. I'm sure we will. But seeing Savage Jeff tonight or, Wednesday night.
Him constantly ragging on Jake during the challenge for, like, trying to bend the rules.
Keep your arms straight.
And Jake just, like, yelling, "I'm trying, Jeff." It's great. I think this episode had a big curveball with who won the challenge. Big Man Bruce. A player no one saw coming. And I think that kind of did Kelly in, but I think it was a lot of other small things. But no, this episode has been phenomenal, and I look for more episodes like this, of just this quality.
It's all you can do. That's all you can hope for. Speaking of Kelly, L will.
I thought you were going to get rid of that. I thought that was just for me behind the scenes.
No, it's for everyone. I have to make everyone know. So Kelly was always in the upper echelon of contenders, basically from episode 2. You could argue 1 as well for Will.
Yeah.
But upper echelon of contenders, always kind of either above D or right below D. It's interesting seeing her go this early. But at the same time, I kind of saw a crack earlier on in the season, Caleb remarking that Kelly is the biggest threat on the tribe on Lumen. Pretty interesting dynamic. It's something that I think actually kind of fed in a little bit into tonight, is that Kelly was the biggest threat. She was the best socially. She already had won an immunity challenge. Strategically, her decisions were sound. And she was also attached to Bruce, which, Katura didn't really bite. You would expect Katura will. But, the attachment to Bruce got to her. And I think it did. And it was a masterful play by the Reba 4 and Emily.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, no, I get it. I think the thing is that there was a few different pathways this season could have taken. And so by having Kelly and Dee so high, I feel like that was always going to clash with each other because they were never going to succeed together because of just the dynamics of them being on part of different alliances. I think Kelly played a really, really solid game. Someone I'm rooting for to return in a future returnee season. Maybe without Bruce and, maybe on a cast without, Brando, she could do really well.
Maybe.
And I thought the Caleb comment was very interesting because Caleb did not want to target that. If you go back, he's like, Kelly's the biggest threat, so I want to work with her. And I was kind of hoping that would be Kelly's whole thing, where yes, she's the biggest threat, but there are other threats, and so people want to use Kelly because she's not, calling all the shots. She's just doing really well socially. Now what happened? She got voted out 10th. RIP. But hey, you made the jury, you made the merge. Had some few votes go your way. Part of one of the best moves in the new era with voting out Caleb. What else can you do, man?
I think the best thing, unfortunately, I think the best thing about Kelly's elimination was a reaction.
Yes.
You don't get butthurt reactions anymore. You don't.
Nope.
It never happens, regardless. We did on Wednesday. Kelly was mad, and the whole Jake thing was fantastic. Kelly being like, "What the hell, guys?"
Yeah.
And being just upset. Kendra crying. Like, man, you need more of that. You don't need to go crazy with that. You don't need to have it every vote out, but you need a good classic blindside reaction once in a while. Like, it's just you gotta be kidding me.
I thought this vote out was actually really sad for a little bit, but then the juxtaposition with Jake just made it funny. I think Kelly trying not to cry, and just clearly you can hear her voice cracking. Kendra, who is just given the biggest face, jaw on the floor, cannot pick it up.
Going through the stages of grief, just like Sean did.
Just like Sean. But I feel like it's one of the sadder eliminations of the new era, because I feel like with the new era, like, we think of sad eliminations, we just think of, like, Jesse, and that's it. Like, for me, I'm not really attached to any of the players, but I thought the reactions, Jake delivering comedic gold throughout the entire episode is just phenomenal. And we'll get to Jake later. I thought this was a really just goated episode, a really cool tribal. Love a good blindside. I was a little upset with my draft, but it made for good TV, and I can swallow my pride for good TV, right? Right.
Sure, you can. Yeah, Jay, Emily Stone Cold, you played a great game. That was epic. We'll get to that. And Austin's head nod. Speaking of, get into it.
No.
Austin wasn't really shown this episode at all, but is he one of the great advantage players ever? At this rate, you find an idol, you sacrifice your vote twice, you get the goodwill advantage the first time, so it doesn't matter. The second time, nobody even knows, nobody figures it out. So you have an idol that's hidden.
Yep.
And you have an idol that was given to you from an amulet. Basically meaning if Austin makes it to the final 6, he's in the final 4.
Yeah. And the only concern I have with Austin, I did some reflection. I nothing that happened, because you can see I dropped him by 1, right? It was nothing about this episode. But there was another player I normally had at 5 that I bumped up to 4, and I did some reflection. I feel like Austin is a player that we're going to overhype in our heads because he's really good at giving confessionals. He's given a lot of screen time, but like he's also being labeled, a weak player, not someone who has a backbone. And so I think, it could be like Xander or even Dean from Island of the Idols, where he gets a very flashy edit, but nothing of a lot of substance. That is my fear with Austin. And I'm not saying he's going to be a losing finalist. I've been saying that about Bruce all season long. But I feel like he's somehow lost win equity, even though his just overall game stocks on the island is through the roof because of the 2 idols.
Yeah.
So I am a little concerned. And plus, in seasons past, when you have 2 idols, it's not a good sign.
It's never a good sign.
Never a good sign.
Nope. James,
Kelly
from Island of the Idols. There you go. It's tough. It's a tougher to be in, and it often leads to a tint of overplaying and a lot of fear.
Yeah.
He now has 2 idols because Kelly got voted out. His sandwich revenge arc is complete. Isn't it sweet poetic justice that in the auction, the item Kelly gets with her remaining money is a sandwich, and they play ominous music, and they pan to Austin, who's like, I wanted that sandwich. There is rage just building inside of him, and all of a sudden, Kelly's gone.
Yeah, it was just the ominous music, despite her like not losing her vote. It worried me and set the tone for the rest of the episode, where I'm like, all right, this is not, Kelly is going to get something here. She's going to get some votes. And then Bruce losing his vote, I think, did her in, honestly.
Yeah, I want to, before we move on, I want to get your thoughts on that as well. What do you think? Because the 3 twists with the auction this year, number 1, no advantages, good. That's what everybody wanted. Well done. Number 2 was the finding money around the jungle. Personally, I liked that. I think that's fine. Incentivizes a little bit of work.
And it's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. And we'll talk about it with Bruce, another little loophole one I thought of. And number 3, the worst one, I think, indeterminate amount of items. Whoever has the most money at the end loses the vote. I dislike that. I think losing your vote has become quite a prominent theme in the show up to this point. Speaking of losing your vote, we just will go and move on. Hi Bruce. Losing your vote in the new era has become the new thing. Shot in the dark, you lose your vote. Auction, you lose your vote. 3 people are losing their vote next episode. Losing your vote's just the thing now. I really like the idea of losing your vote, but it's oversaturated. I think there's a lot of it now. I think losing your vote should have a lot more impact. You should only lose your vote in very, very specific circumstances. Once you lose that vote, it is bad, and you have to really work hard.
Yeah.
When someone loses their vote almost every single round, there's a vote lost. At that point, it's kind of like,
it's
trivial. Matter? Yeah, it's trivial. Doesn't matter. What do you think?
I think it could work if there were just less vote losses. I think a cool auction idea, though, honestly, is you get a really good item. The stipulation is, if you want it, you have to bank your vote, lose your vote, whatever. Like you get like a burger, a slice of pizza, fries, water or Coke or whatever. Like something that's, has carbs, protein, legitimately everything you'd want, or like a nice steak, whatever, but you have to bank your vote. I think that's a cool idea that could work in an auction. I personally don't hate the idea, not as much as some people. I feel like some people, anytime there's a slight twist to make things match with the new era, they're like, I hate this.
Yeah.
I feel like Randy has that idea quite a bit. Shout out to Randy.
Our fearless leader.
I love you, Randy. But no, I don't hate it. And at the same time, too, I feel like losing your vote just is trivial. Because I feel like a lot of times in Survivor, it's less about you voting someone out and just making sure the vote isn't on you. But I do think there's a little too much, and I don't think a third of the cast losing their votes is fair, especially if it's random.
I mean, truly, there hasn't been a vote where the entire merge tribe has been together, and now I don't think we're getting a vote like that till the final 8, and it could be longer. We don't know. And Jay, I agree. I think that, losing your vote, there should be extreme weight on that. I think that, it's become super trivial, as Will, you've said. Sometimes having every vote is important. Sometimes having everybody saying, hey, I have a say in this tribal council. Sometimes that's important to have because it shows where everybody's looking. When some people don't vote, you don't need that. And some people don't have to show that, especially when you get late down in the game. I think if they do a lose your vote kind of thing again at the final 8, you got a problem. And I think that's a new era problem, not really a this season problem. I just think you need to kind of reimagine the idea of losing your vote. But beyond that, Bruce was the target for everyone this episode. Everybody was going to go for Bruce. There's not a person in the cast who was like, no, I want to keep Bruce. Even Kelly. Kelly was like, yeah, Bruce got to go.
Jake might have wanted to keep, if there's a war, he wanted Bruce to stay more than everyone else, but even he was going to vote at Bruce.
Yeah.
I feel like Kelly and Bruce had a different dynamic than Bruce and Jake. Where Kelly, it was more like a ball and chain, as she said, while Jake is, he just wants to play Survivor,
Yeah. And the Bruce wins immunity. Very classic challenge. Good for Bruce to win an immunity challenge. Find the idol. He's doing some Survivor things. The only question is, when is he going to go home for me? Not, is he a losing finalist? Because I don't think he's a losing finalist. Because I had someone for the past couple of weeks being like, yeah, this guy or this person, it's a bit ambiguous. This person is probably a losing finalist. Now I have 2 people that I think are going to be losing finalists. And Will agrees with me on one of them.
I do.
So we'll see how that happens. But the question is, when does he go?
I feel like just him making it this far kind of shows that he was a Tika member all along. Because who else makes enemies day one, makes a one-sided, argument, and somehow makes it to the final 9 with an idol? Like, who else but Bruce?
Only Tika.
Only Tika. Hi, D.
Let's get to D. The number 1. She reigns. She reigns alone. I'm not gonna say that D is the number 1 de facto. It can be no one else. It's only D, or we all die. However, she's if you had a tier chart, right? You had tier 1 at the top, and 2, 3, 4, 5. D's at 1, and anybody else starts at 3. Tier 2 is just vacant for space.
It had Kelly before, but now
it had Kelly before, and now it's just D. I mean, I really don't think there's any way it can be anyone else than D at this moment. There are a few others that I'm like, there's still a chance, but D is by far the biggest chance to win the game. By far, I'm writing in stone. It will probably happen.
Yeah, and the thing is too, is that I feel like D's edit is very obvious when you're really analyzing the edgic, but and the edit and like take into account for everything. But like for casual viewers, D is not that obvious of a front runner. I feel like people they're still high, especially on Austin, especially on I think there's a lot of Drew fans, maybe some Jake, and I think that gives me hope with D's edit because we always talk about a player being too obvious of a winner, right?
Yeah.
Like that was our big stipulation with Carson last year where he was just too perfect. I feel like because casuals don't see D in the same light of the immediate winner, because she's still respected. Everyone's like, oh, I like D, she's doing good, but it's not she's the winner, write it in stone. Listen to Jack and Will in the Survivor Now podcast. That gives me a lot more hope than normal. And so and I like D. I'll ride the D train. I'm
Welcome
good
aboard. Two things I want to point out before we move on. Number one, it's hard to put weight on winner moments, like winner clues, because Survivor editors always throw in clues in the middle of the season to the winner. They throw in little phrases, little moments that clue us in that this person's going to be the winner. If D was to be the winner, we got one this episode.
Yeah.
Although I wonder how much weight you put on it. The moment I'm talking about is at the auction. I forget who specifically said it, but someone said D is our winner.
Yeah, it was during the money race. It was Austin.
Yeah.
That's one
very,
of the, yeah.
Very shoehorned. What weight do you put on that? And other small remarks like that, it is as to who could be the winner of the show.
I think moments like that, it's hard because there's that, and then there's also the intro where D is always at the top, which I recently found is a callback to Survivor Philippines because Denise had the same thing. I didn't know that, and so it's one of those things where individually I put no weight on it whatsoever, but then once things start building up, once I start seeing all the other small pieces, then I put a little more weight. And once D wins the season, or if D wins the season, it could still be Bruce. We don't know. We're living in a timeline where Mike Gabler won, so what do we know?
Yeah, very true.
If D wins, we're all going to be like, oh my God, think about what Austin said during the auction. Think about the intro. Think about how her feet were somehow given a lot of screen time, and that helped her win the challenge. Like that's, all these small moments. I don't think individually, though, it just amounts to much because I feel like they could put in a lot of those moments for a lot of other people. And it's just because we're seeing D in such a good light, now we're starting to be more privy to like the smaller moments. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I don't have anything else to say about that.
Good.
Great. Number two, bring up Jay's point here before we move on. Exit interviews. Kelly said Emily won the blindside D. The Bellas got their act together. And we saw the preview. Will, you're a next time on Survivor hater. You don't think any of that stuff is real. Tell me your opinion. Tell me your opinion seeing Emily saying D's got to go in the next time on Survivor.
So I'm not a hater because hating means I don't like it. I just don't watch it. Because normally Survivor, it ends and then I have to do, it's normal like crash. I have to do stuff. I have personal responsibility. So normally as soon as tribal happens, I'm done watching because I also don't feel like sitting through commercials. The thing is that I think now we're getting to a point where threat management doesn't necessarily matter as much because you can make a case for anyone left in the game being a huge threat outside of even Bruce can be labeled a huge threat because he could still weasel his way through the game. He can have the thing of like, everyone wants me gone, so just vote me out later, whatever. Right. And so I think D could still spin it. And, I wonder how much traction Emily will get with this because, does Drew trust Emily more than D? Because I feel like D and Julie will be tight. And I could see them bringing in someone like Bruce and Jake and picking up some Bello people. Maybe getting Katora still. I don't know. I think it's not completely out of the realm of possibility where D is able to make a counter play. Maybe vote out Drew. Maybe that's when we get Drew gone. Maybe vote out, maybe get out Emily. Or they just target Bruce because why not? Let's all target Bruce. But, I like it's great, but also it's like the last time on Survivor with the last episode, it was all about the all girls alliance, which flopped. So something tells me D is going to stay and survive, and that Emily is not going to get D out next episode.
Sounds good to me. Drew.
Hi, Drew.
So Drew did not play his safety without power at all. It is a advantage that disappeared into the abyss. Didn't need to. I think most of the credit would be given to Drew for this based on the edit for this move. You gotta wonder, right? You gotta wonder. We've been saying for weeks, Drew's gonna have this glorious downfall. It's gonna come. Just get ready. And then he has a good episode like this.
Yeah.
Does it change things? Could it change things?
I think it changes things in a way. I still don't think Drew's winning the season. I think there were a lot of small moments. I think Stickbug, honestly, is the biggest indicator to me that Drew is losing. And I'm being very sincere when I say that.
No, I know.
I think I think Drew is less having a slow downfall. I think it's going to crash. I think maybe Emily tries to make a play on D, and then Drew's collateral for that. The issue is I feel like Drew, he talks a big game, but then doesn't really deliver, right? Like, I think back to the split tribal. He really wants Bruce gone. It's best for his game. What happens instead? Sifu goes. And so it's like, because of that, I don't necessarily think that Drew is in this chessboard scenario that he thought he would be in. Would think back to episode 1 and episode 2.
Right.
And so I think it's less of a downfall, of an immediate downfall, but I still just don't put any stock in him winning. Maybe a little more longevity, but I still have him at 8, second lowest overall. And I've kind of completely written him off as a winner.
Right.
To me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Drew, but I don't think there's honestly much else to talk about with that. I mean,
no.
Drew had a pretty standard episode of kind of being the move maker. Good move, taking out Kelly. Smart move. I wonder, and I think it could be confirmed next episode, following episode. Is he really a contender, or is he going to be taken out as the first Reba blindside? So we'll see how that goes.
Hi, Emily.
You moved her to 4.
I did. I did.
You moved her to the dragon spot.
She was always in. I've been calling her the dragon the entire season, Jack, except for episode 1.
But why didn't you move her to 4 then?
Because she's been quiet. That's really it.
Oh.
No, come on. No, it's because I moved Austin down. That's why Emily got moved up, right? I still think that the odds of her, it's kind of the same scenario with Brandon versus Emily. I talked about episode 1. The odds of Emily making it and odds of Emily winning a final tribal council to me is a lot higher than Austin winning. But the odds of Austin making the final tribal council is higher than Emily going to the final tribal council. And that's a weird dynamic to have. I do think, though, that, with Emily being the lone Lulu member left, she's put in a really good position to where no one is even looking at her, because it could have been a Rob Seed-esque move where both sides are like, hey, let's just cut the middleman out, and regroup later. I'm fully convinced, though, that she's the dragon of the season. Or a light version of the dragon, because she's not exactly calling every single shot, but she was a part of the Kelly blindside. She, is pretty much, she voted out every single Lulu member. That's a really good statistic to have. And so, there's Emily. Not much to
I
say.
think I think if she makes the end, she's probably gonna have one of the better shots to win out of the cast. It's a matter of if. It's a matter of if she makes the end. It's a matter of if she beats D, because D's the obvious front runner to both of us. Is there anything else? I'm trying to think and see if there's anything else we could talk about with Emily. We didn't get anything from her about Caleb.
That is weird.
Yeah, it is interesting, right? We didn't get any remarks on Caleb was gone. I just lost my number one ally. It was a little bit just same old Emily, just a little bit of strategic. Here's what I'm going to do here. Here's what I'm going to do there. Not a lot of. Wow, I just lost my number one in this game. What do you think of that? What do you make of that?
The thing is, normally I'd be worried, but it's also a player who's very transactional and very robotic, right? To where Emily, I feel like she was always going to cut Caleb. I'm also wrong. Yes, she didn't vote out Caleb or Sean, but like she voted out. She made Sean quit the game. Let's be real here, Jay. Like,
that's pretty good.
Emily voting out Tobiah made Sean quit the game. Let's be real. No, but I feel like she's not emotional at all. I mean, yes, she has her moments of I want to make connections, but she's very like, I don't want to mess around. I just want to play the game, and I think that's been Emily since day one. And I think that Caleb still respects Emily, and the fact that Caleb is the first juror is also part of why I think Emily could win a final tribal council. I think especially compared to D, if it's like her and D, and just let's throw Bruce in there as the 0 vote finalist, who cares? I think Emily has a better story and narrative.
Yes.
Especially in New Era Survivor, especially with like Caleb and Kendra on the jury, and we can even throw in Kelly. She'll appreciate the gesture. I see Emily beating D in the final tribal council. I just don't see Emily making it to the final tribal council anymore. That's I kind of said that too episode 1. Wow.
Right. And we're gonna get Jay, we're gonna get to this point with Kendra, because that's one of the big threads that still haven't been resolved yet with this season.
Yeah.
Kendra's revenge, her wanting revenge. We're gonna see how that plays out. But moving on to Jake, who is now number 2 and number 3 for Will. This is not a Jake just shot up the winner list potential.
No.
This is a Jake is a losing finalist move. Jake will be a losing final. There's nothing else to say. His episode was horrendous. His episode was truthfully awful. Interesting move, maybe a good one, kind of convincing some split votes from the idol blunder, and ultimately playing a shot in the dark, but just horrendously overplayed at tribal, always claiming he has to make a big move, and then throwing his vote away with the shot in the dark, not getting safe, and screaming, as Jay so aptly put, "Whoa!" Sorry, whoa. What a moment. What a moment from Jake to solidify second and third place.
If I was getting blindsided and I had you there and you thought you were getting voted out and you just start saying, "Whoa!" I'm sorry, "Whoa!" I'd be pissed. I'd be like, I quit. I don't need Ponderosa to send me back home. Jeff, I don't care anymore.
Jeff, I quit.
You can't fire me. No.
You can't fire me, I'll quit.
Because here's the thing with Jake, right? I think he's pretty much just Owen from 43, right? Nothing in the game is going his way, but he's a very likable guy. And he's getting a lot of personal content. Personally, I love Jake, right? I boarded the Jake train a few weeks ago, and I'm like, Jake is a really cool guy. And now I believe that, and so I'm glad, but also his edit, it's way too personal, and his game makes no sense. Unless he like somehow becomes the biggest underdog and his whole story is just throwing everything at the wall and like squeaking on by and then winning, which would be hilarious. Not good, just hilarious.
Well, yeah, pretty funny.
Really funny. I don't think Jake's winning. But he won my heart, and that's all that matters.
He won our little Bostonian hearts. I still think Jake can turn it around. Bruce will have Jake under his wing and it'll replace Kelly as Bruce's number one. Yeah, all right. And then you brought up an earlier point, Jay, as well about Bruce saying Kelly was his number one, while Jake believes Bruce was his number one. And I think in part that was a misread on Jake's part, and another reason why he's been kind of clued in as a losing finalist up to this point. And number two, it's highly indicative of this episode because Jake begging Bruce, saying, hey, save me with the idol. I don't think Bruce would save anybody with the idol except for him and Kelly, because Bruce saw Kelly as his number one, which didn't see Jake as his number one, meaning Jake's reads and Jake's relationships aren't as strong. To kind of put a historical point on it, get Owen Knight and Sierra Easton only from Survivor Cambodia in a room together and let them cook.
That's the dumbest comparison I ever.
What are you talking about? Okay, Owen was Charlie Brown, right? You made that comparison, so that's not. Sierra Easton in Cambodia was always like, when are we going to make big moves? When are we going to make big blindsides?
I forgot Sierra Easton played. I forgot she played 3 times.
She played 3 times.
I forgot I only remember her. Okay, yeah, that's fair. We even did the StockWatch for Cambodia. I do not remember Sierra Easton in Survivor Cambodia. To be fair, of the Witches' Coven, it's like, what? I think of Cass McQuillan. I think of Evan Maria and Kelly Wentworth. I don't think of Sierra.
Wow.
Like, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
and then
Sierra.
She came back for Game Changers and what? Lost to Vlachos? No.
Lost to Vlachos.
Yeah. No.
The worst fit. Anywho, Julie.
Let's go to Julie. Hi, Julie.
Okay. This is the other person I was alluding to earlier in the episode when I said losing finalist, maybe. In my opinion, Julie is definitely not as clear as a losing finalist as Jake is. Like, Jake is 100%. I don't think there's anything changing that. Julie, there's some wiggle room. Julie, there's a little bit of give and take. I could see Julie. I could see Bruce. I could see maybe Katura, maybe Kendra. I think those are the potentials. I think Julie just has the strongest. She's been under-edited. And I think if Dee does make the end and she brings Julie, I think it's going to fit and it's going to work out to where Julie loses because Julie is seen as Dee's number one, not necessarily her own strong player. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I also, thinking about it, if the configuration is Dee, Julie, and Jake, I kind of think Julie is a 0-vote finalist.
Really?
I think Jake honestly is going to get Bruce's vote, oddly enough. Like, just because it's like every final tribal council, it's 7-1-0, right? Or 6-1-0, whatever the number is, right?
Very true. 7-1-0.
No, I think the problem with Julie though is like she just has a weird edit. It's kind of like Katora in a sense where it's just like she's her own player, but she's also like always with another player. And so it's like, will she get the respect she deserves? Because she's playing a solid game, right? And I just don't know. It's weird because it's like we saw her on the heels of the previous vote where she got the 2 votes from Jake. We had that interaction. Julie was angry, but then we didn't really see her a part of the Kelly plan, right? Like it was mainly Drew, if I recall correctly. Who was calling out Kelly for being the threat, and we didn't see a lot of Julie, which is just weird. And it's like losing finalist behavior, but then it's also like she gets personal content about her, starting her life over and like being a lawyer. It's weird.
Yeah,
season doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens, especially with the one thread where Julie was mad at Jake and said, I want Jake out, and ended up voting for Kelly instead. Goes to show maybe Julie doesn't have the biggest sway in the room in the Reba 4.
No.
And so I think that may come back to bite her at the end of the game. So
Absolutely. Hi, Katora.
And then we get to Katura. You want to say hi to everyone?
I'm saying hi to everyone.
Oh my goodness. All right, Katura was fine this episode. Not crazy. Lots more about Bruce. What else could you expect at this point? The biggest thread this season. How is Katura versus Bruce going to end? How's it going to end? How is it going to end? Are they going to go out and fire and they're going to be two boots at the same tribal council?
Probably.
Are they going to work together to change the game, flip it on Ariba, and then Bruce and Katura go home next? I don't know. Truly. Because this is the biggest threat of the season. Because while Bruce has other stuff, like being targeted by everyone and being delusional, Katura really doesn't. Katura basically has a little bit about wanting to flip and vote out Caleb, and the rest of it's about Bruce. And so at this point, you gotta wonder, right? Like, what happens? I could see her being a 0-vote finalist or just a finalist in general, a losing finalist. Yeah. I could see her getting 6th. I could see her getting 7th, 8th, 9th, probably not 5th or 4th, but, you know.
Who knows at this point?
We don't know. This is a big question mark.
Again, Katora and Julie, I think they have the weirdest edits to me because, again, they're so joined at the hip with another player. They're so just, it's always D and Julie, and this is always Bruce and Katora. I mean, not in the same light, but it sucks because, again, I feel like Katora, we've seen flashes of brilliance with Katora. We've seen her be a very aware player who's able to understand, like, what's going on around her. That's a very good attribute to have in Survivor. It's just we're not seeing much about it. And I'm not denying that Katura is bad at Survivor or whatever. It's just if we're not seeing it, then I feel like Katura isn't really that important to the overall story of Survivor 45.
Right. And that adds on to that point from Jay as well. If we're not seeing it, probably not that important. But
exactly. And it's just not important. And it sucks, but what you gonna do?
What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I think the two fellow girls are the most unknowns. I think everybody else we have a solid read on basically how they're gonna do. What did you just draw?
A pen. Don't worry about it.
Why are you fiddling with a pen during this podcast?
Because I just slammed a whole Monster Energy drink, all right?
Grow up. Kendra!
Yo, Kendra.
Very great personal episode from Kendra talking about her dad and the beer. Really nice to see, again, fleshing out the people that we're seeing on the show. Always a plus. So this was good to see. However, she got unceremoniously walloped by Kelly's elimination this episode.
Yeah.
And it raises the two questions. Number one, how is she going to place? What's she going to do? And number two, how is she going to treat this with Emily going forward? Because this is we've been talking about it a little bit, but how is that threat of Kendra wanting revenge on Emily going to take place? How is it going to happen? When is it going to happen?
Exactly. It's weird. I think the fact that we're not seeing a lot of Kendra v. Emily from the Brando vote when Kendra had such a big reaction to the Brando vote kind of clues us in. I think, I know what Jay's been calling Kendra having a weird edit. I kind of disagree. I think Kendra's edit is very clear. It's just where does she place? She's just a very loyal, personable person who can't set aside the game from personal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to cost her in some capacity. And I feel like it already did by, wanting to work with Brando and not seeing the bigger picture. And, like a lot of her focus throughout the whole season has just been her being the weird oddball. She's either getting personal content about like why she's weird or her dad and beer and pretzels, or it's her talking about stick bugs and star signs and whatnot. And so it's weird. I don't think Kendra wins the season. However, if she does, I think we're going to see a very big revenge plot, kind of similar to Natalie Anderson from San Juan del Sur, with how Jeremy goes, her sister goes, and all heck breaks loose. I could see the same thing with Kendra just lost her closest ally in Kelly, and now everyone's going to pay for that.
Absolutely. Let's get to it. I think it's time to talk about status for this. Before we do this, I'm going to go ahead and rule out people. Will, you're more than welcome to do the same, or just agree if you're the same as me. I am ruling out from contention. We haven't done this, but
but it's late enough. We can do it.
It's easy enough. I'm ruling out Jake, Julie, Austin, Drew, and Bruce. So all the guys and Julie are gone. I still have D as my number 1. Emily is number 2. And then Keturah and Kendra in a limbo tier or a not sure tier. What do you think?
I'm not completely sold on Austin losing. I'm getting there. I'm like 99% there. Mm-hmm. But I think it's still a little too early to place him as the definitive. Like, I don't want to put him in the same tier as Bruce and Drew and Jake, but I also don't want to put him in the same tier as Kendra and Keturah. He's in between those two, where it's like, even though I talked about him not being a losing finalist and not getting respected, I could also see him just being the good old boy, good old challenge guy, good old advantage guy, and being a good ally, being strong in the raid before, and then surviving and whatever. Legitimate strategy for you Survivor fans. I'm not sure, but I do agree. I mean, Bruce, we ruled out episode 1.
Yes, we did.
Drew, I ruled out a while ago. Jake, I ruled out last episode, but mainly this episode. And Julie, yeah. But I agree for the most part.
Jay, I think you're unfortunately alone. You are on your own island with that point.
To be fair, he was right about Kelly going as early as she did. Because we thought Kelly was going to stay a little longer. You thought like final 6.
Maybe Jay's a visionary. Maybe Jay's the winner. Maybe Jay knows the winner. Who knows?
He's like camera crew guy on Survivor. He knows.
He's production. Damn it. Should have listened. Quick hits. Here we go. Best episode. Emily. Yeah, I know. Weird, right? She didn't have a lot this episode, but I think it solidifies her spot as maybe a middleman going forward. I think she has a lot of protection, and I think if it's anybody that's super clear that are making it to the top 4, I think it's Emily. I think you can lock that in. Kendra and Drew with positive episodes. Kendra mainly just for her positive segment. If she didn't really have that, it would be treated more of a you are hanging on by a thread. But with that, there's a little bit more to the puzzle. And Drew with a great strategic episode, putting him back in the limelight a little bit. You have D, Julie, and Austin at stay. D's a stay, number 1, still the best.
Yeah.
Julie's a stay also, right in that same range. We've had her for a long time. Same with Austin. I think I've had one episode where Austin was 6, and that was episode 1. Every single episode since then has been 5. It's not changing for me. You have Keturah at a slight sell. It's a little early to say. We still got to see what happens with the Keturah Bruce storyline, but not a great episode from her. You have Jake at horrendous. Goodbye. Get rid of everything now.
Yeah.
Get rid of everything now. Jay, I envy your commitment.
I saw better stocks early 1930s.
I saw better stocks back in the 1920s. Yeah. And then we have Bruce at the always unfortunate. Why do you have this? Any thoughts?
No, I mean, this is we've been having the same opinions. I feel like the only deviation was Drew. So it's like, at this point, it's like just listen to us. We know what we're doing.
Right. Magic. We have Jake with the so sad over the top -4. Never
That's
good.
not sad. That's a
That's-
great Edgic. I want that.
I don't know. Wait, what do you think? You got any thoughts? I mean, it's pretty it's pretty standard.
No, Kendra with the over the top +3, I think is always a fun. I always like seeing over the top positive edits. It's always fun to see. Drew and Emily, good edits, whatever. Austin's been under the radar for a little bit now. We're not seeing a whole lot of Austin. But it's the Edgic. We've seen this. We've seen the episode. You know what's going on.
We know this stuff.
We know.
Well, Will,
Jack,
this has been the stocks.
why do you spaz out every time you say that?
Because it's important.
You gotta just calm down, man.
It's a trademark.
We're not trademarked. Do you know how expensive trademarks are?
A lot.
You think we're getting paid for this?
Trademark price.
Okay.
Hey, $50.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah.
You cannot spaz out when saying this is the
This
stocks
has been
anymore.
the stocks, our trademark. Will, any closing thoughts?
If you ever say this is the stocks for any business, we will sue.
Agreed. We will sue. We will pursue with legal action.
All right.
Trademark. All right. Thank you all for watching episode 8 of Survivor Stock Watch. We will see you next week for a gobbly fall pumpkin pie filled cold and wintry Survivor Stock Watch. Me from a different location. I'll be home.
We might be doing this at a different time. I have to tell Jack about certain plans for Friday.
We'll see how this goes. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week.